Hello everyone, welcome back to the next episode of our podcast. And today we have Advocate Jha Arunima with us. So, hi Arunima.
Hi, Rishi.
Hi. How are you, Arunima?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. So Arunima, first of all, I wanted to know the meaning of your name. This always gets me curious to understand people's names. So, what is your name?
It means the first ray of sunlight which touches the earth. So, because
Oh,
I'm the first child, so very
right,
responsible,
right,
something more resonating.
right. Of course. Yeah. So before we start the conversation, let's get you introduced to our audience. So, if you may, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
So, I'm a media and entertainment lawyer with 10 plus years of experience now. I am based out of Bombay, and I, in my free time, I like to also do fashion blogging. I am very active on Instagram, and in fact, I have garnered 53,000 followers on Instagram,
Hmm.
which is, very different
Yeah,
because
very
it's
unusual
not
to a
a part,
lawyer.
it's not a part of my profession. So
Mm-hmm.
we just started as an experiment.
Right, right. So at first, want to come to the very basic of questions. I just want to understand what has motivated you to be a lawyer or pursue this particular career.
Um, I think I I've always considered myself as a very hardworking person rather than a very smart person.
Uh-huh.
If I'm in a room filled with people, I would know that I know for sure that I am one of the most hardworking person. So law was something that I could understand easily, but I've tried a lot of other things, options I had. My family wanted me to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You always have those traditional fields
Yeah,
where you want
yeah. Engineer,
either
doctor, yeah.
yeah, it's fixed. Either you be an engineer or you be a doctor. So of course I was not good at math, so I couldn't become engineer and engineering field. And then I said, let me try out law. And when I entered, I thought that this is something which kept me glued, and I understood it. I was happy overall.
Right. And so, how did you come to pick up your specialty in corporate and commercial law? How did that happen to you? Because I'm sure law has criminal law and there are lots of other typographies of law. So, how did you come to choose corporate and commercial law?
So I'm a first generation lawyer, right?
Okay.
And I never had an opportunity to pick and choose.
Hmm.
So whatever came my way, I had to sort of work on that thing.
Right.
So to say, I started with you know, with a media, you know, with a media magazine. Basically, it was a
Mhm.
fashion magazine for which I had to give a legal opinion. So I started from there. Then I went into consumer. Then I went into arbitration. I went into criminal. I went into matrimonial. Then at the end of the day, I went back to real estate. Then I went to you know customs. Then I went back to
So
again
much. Yeah.
media. Then again now I'm in media. So I have had tasted every field in there.
Hmm. Understood. Understood. So it has always been about things that have come across, and then I think this is your happy place now, right? I mean, this is fixed, or do you want to again go into some other law again and try to figure out?
Um, Depends. I mean, if I get something where I could learn, where I could explore more opportunities, then of course, why not? I mean,
Right.
law is ever changing, ever
Right.
evolving.
Right.
Might as well learn more too.
Right. I've been going through your LinkedIn as well as your Instagram profile, and I've seen, the reason why I asked this question was because I've seen you are discussing on various topics, right? Even on LinkedIn, your topics are not just restricted to corporate law. You're talking about the justice, there's the criminal side of it as well, and the discrimination end. So I thought, why not ask this question? So you have this fluttered information of all the kind of problems that's going on. And interestingly, I have a certain question about this because I'm sure you know that India is ranked 79th out of 139 countries with the rule of law index 2021. India is ranked 79th. I think the list was topped by Finland, Norway, and other countries respectively. So I want to understand, how do you see this? India is still, I mean, we call India as a developing nation, but India is still at 79th out of 139. So do you see this as a progress, or do you see, basically, how do you see it?
I think it's of course a positive note to celebrate, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have seen law, especially Indian Indian legal system, okay, being very very traditional. Now we do see a change over there as well. I mean, you see traditional lawyers. If you had to have a meeting in, let's say, 40 years back, you have to go with your file to somebody's office physically, meet them. And those lawyers, probably who have been there, I mean, I'll say traditional generations. So even if today you have to go and meet them, you have to carry your brief, you have to carry your file, you have to give them, there is a set amount of fee which is fixed. And today's generation, I mean, if we talk about Gen Z or even millennials, right, or the other generations which are now coming, they are mostly glued to the screen. So you wouldn't expect, they want things to be done at the tip of their finger.
Right.
I want a doctor today, I'm not keeping well, instead of going to the hospital, if this is a general thing, I could have somebody come to my place. Therefore, we are now more comfortable with Uber, we are more comfortable with urban class, and that's how even law is now evolving. Now you see new lawyers, if you fix an appointment, right, they would do a Google Meet, or they would do a phone call, they will understand your matter, they'll fix a meeting again, which could be a virtual meet, and then they will discuss. And then they'll take it forward. So that way, even the clients are more comfortable. And of course, it's a digital era. I feel, but there's a long way, long journey to cover, and it requires a lot of resilience and determination, of course.
Right. So your take on the prevailing state of justice is positive. That is something that I can take away from it, right?
Definitely. It's evolving, but there are drawbacks, and that's there in every profession.
Right. And since we have spoke about the traditional justice system or legal system, this is an era, I mean, not era exactly, but this is a field which has been dominated by male, right? And of course, female are being a part of it, and they are just they're just doing great. So I want to understand, what's your take on it, and what are the personal challenges that you face as a female advocate or a lawyer or a legal counsel for a media company in this present work experience that you have had so far?
I would say this is an age-old, gender dynamic question. Right? I think one of the reasons that there was a lot of male dominance in the legal field was, if you trace it back, it was to this long-standing societal norms and biases.
Right.
Traditionally, when law was introduced, it was preferred more as a profession for men, and women faced several barriers. They faced several prejudices in accessing the education, in accessing the career opportunities, right? And these societal norms kind of perpetuated the underrepresentations of women in the legal profession.
Right.
If you talk about today, of course, there is a change. There is a change in the profession. You could see a lot of women lawyers in every field of the law, right? And this is more to do with networking. This is more to do with proving yourself, proving your knowledge in the field, right? You will require a good mentor to help you and guide you overcome those gender biases. So establishing connections with your fellow professionals, both male and female, right? That can provide you valuable guidance, that can provide you the support that you're looking for, and of course there are opportunities. So I think that was the reason I could think of scientifically and historically, but there is definitely a change.
Right. I want to take this conversation to the back question that I've asked, to the last question, which was about the traditionality of law in India. So you have mentioned there are certain drawbacks, right? I mean, we are progressing, but again at a slower rate or at a rate, and we would be seeing fruitful progressions in the future. But that said, you have also mentioned that there are certain drawbacks too. Could you highlight what drawbacks do you think Indian law happens to have, unfortunately, and how can we curb that?
I think one drawback, okay, which a lot of lawyers, legal professionals, okay, don't openly talk about is corruption.
Right.
There is an underlying problem of corruption. So if you go to the court, or if you go to, especially if you go to any department, which is wherein you need to move a paper, people are so used to bribes that they will expect some sort of money to be given. That is one of the biggest reasons. For simple things like moving your file. I have even while practicing, I have witnessed situations where I've seen people will conveniently forget the facts of the matter. The lawyer on your side has conveniently forgotten the fact. Reason being he's been bribed. So somebody whom you have just briefed like 5 minutes before the hearing, he would tell you that, boss, I forgot the facts, I forgot your case, and that's how you lose your case. So imagine the fate of litigants, where it is placed. I've seen people crying in the court. I've seen, sadly, I've also seen judges who would give you answers like, the case is already, it's only pending for 4 years. What is the urgency? 4 years, even for 4 months, justice delayed is justice denied.
Correct.
We don't have that infrastructure. That is something which needs to be addressed. I mean, of course, at the Supreme Court, at High Court, these problems do not persist that much. That is one problem. Second, I feel there is not a uniformity in the processes across different states. So if you file a case, let's say in Bombay, okay, in High Court, the process will be very different for you. And similar case, if you go to Delhi, the process probably will be little different. Okay, so then as a litigant who is getting into matrimonial disputes, family disputes, or multifaceted disputes, right? Where they had to go through a channel of authorities. It is very it's very, I'll say it's problematic, and it's very stressful. Because when a we fail when a person is scared to come to the court, when a person is scared to approach the authorities. I shouldn't be scared of going to the court or fighting for justice. Why should I be? But that's the sad reality. People don't talk about it.
Right. Arunima, this is again an age-old problem, and trust me, I think 5 years down the line, if the if the legal system is like this in India, I'd be very honest, I think people would be surprised if something happens without the money involved or without the corruption thing, right? I think people will get amazed that, "Arey waah, mera kaam jaldi ho gaya." That is the kind of thing that's going to be down the line after 5 years, I'm sure. But this is again an age-old problem. Corruption is one thing. This fear of law, I really don't understand why. But again, I'm sure there are different factors that you must know. But I want to understand what are the right solutions for it, because don't you think this is too much for us to keep on giving the same excuses again and again, despite any platform, podium, stage, or podcast that you come across? This has been the major problem, and we all know it now. So what do you think is the solution for it? Can we stop this?
I think one of the major reasons, the pillar from which it starts, are lawyers. Because the lawyer is your connecting point, be with the department, be in the courtroom, or be with the client. Right? right? And if you don't have the right lawyer with you, you will not get your resolution. Sadly, in this field, majority people believe in dragging the matter for years. Otherwise, how will I get paid for my fee? How will I build up a villa?
Is it reality? Is it true? Do advocates do this?
Of course, I know. I have friends who would justify this. I have friends I know that the matter has been going on for so long, and I keep telling them, why don't you just go, tell them the right way, just go to the High Court, file a petition, or just tell them, even if the client is not able to pay you money, take whatever that person is able to pay you and go to some other authority, try and seek a speedy resolution. I have seen lawyers who would not tell their clients the actual state of the case. I mean, they will not even come prepared to the court. They will sometimes not even enter the court, and the matter is adjourned. And they'll say, okay, I went, give me the fee for this day of appearance, and your matter was taken for the next day. The judge does not have time. Whereas the reality is, I never appeared. And therefore, the judge has adjourned, the court has adjourned the matter.
Right.
That's, I think if you ask me about resolution, okay, I think that's something that, there's a very famous saying, charity begins at home. Right? So if you are honest, right, if everybody starts being honest, I'm not saying don't conduct business, but don't cheat.
Right.
Profit and cheating are two very different things. Profit is when I can charge you, instead of 100, I say my services are better than somebody, so I'm charging you 200. But I am crystal clear about it that this is my fee. Right? Cheating is when, for example, I am telling you there is a FIR registered against you, right? You need to take bail, ABA, for a bailable offense. It's not even applicable. That's dishonesty. That's cheating. And what happens as a client, when I go and check it, validate it with any other lawyer, this person gave me this opinion. Do you think it really makes sense for me to go to the court and then spend around, let's say, 70,000, 80,000, 1 lakh rupees in ABA? And the other person tells you, no, it's not even applicable because it's a bailable offense. So, in that situation, probably the client will not understand the legal nuance, but imagine the trust, the faith. I think that's another thing. And somewhere, the courts should have some sort of system. The bar council, more than the court, should have some sort of system where your duly appointed advocate has some sort of onus. Today, there is so much of pendency of litigation, even cases for bar council complaints. Right? People don't want to go through that painful task. If I have paid my lawyer, why shouldn't, if my lawyer is not appearing in a matter, if he is not arguing, he has messed up my case, why should I, as a client, not ask for some sort of a liability?
Another thing, I mean, rightly mentioned, but again, another thing that I really believe, not just think, but believe that would definitely solve this issue when it comes to the fear of, the whole justice system or the legal system, the whole problems of going and then understanding what are the process and all of that, and also cheating of advocates that they sometimes do, which I've got to know for the first time through you. I think educating the public is also one way, in order to help them understand the whole legal system, because I'm sure I think 95% of Indians do not understand the legal system and the small nuances of it, and that they get cheated on, or they don't understand the whole framework, or they're afraid of at least go and pursue justice. So how do you see educating the public, and if you see this is the right way, how do you think this education can be done in a more prevalent way or in a more effective way, that we can actually understand the nuances of the justice system or the legal system of India?
I think there are I'll talk about social media right now. Okay? I think it's a very powerful tool.
Right.
And I know for a fact that there are lawyers, good lawyers, who have started their own channels, they run their own channels on Instagram, on YouTube, and they are trying their
Right. Right.
they are educating people, and they're not shy about it. They're not insecure. That if I tell somebody in this matter, okay, for example, there is an FIR registered against me. What do I do? What am I right? Right. So I made a video about it. Somebody doesn't know because there are frivolous cases, frivolous complaints filed across the country, and it's a fact. So somebody probably sitting in some other part of the country might not need my service, but gets educated. So basis that he might go and connect with the right lawyer, right? But there are majority of the people don't want to talk about the processes. They don't want to educate people. They don't want to educate their own clients from whom they have taken money. Reason being, if I educate my client, he is going to go away. That is the level of insecurity that lawyers have, and that's sad. And I think somewhere, though CLAT has been introduced, there is an all India entrance test that happens where now there are people being selected through a rigorous procedure, and then they are sent to law schools and all. But still, there are places where the quality of lawyers are not very controlled. So somewhere there has to be quality that needs to be controlled. For example, there are countries who have the New York State Bar have the toughest state bar examination in the world. The Singapore today has one of the toughest state bar examinations. So why not have something of that sort where you can segregate quality from quantity, give it to few people, give the license to few people who actually deserve, who are ready to work.
Correct.
It's well, people might find it debatable, but I still consider that you have to balance your noble profession and your money. You can't always be about one side. You can't always keep talking about money and then say, yes, I'm all up for justice, this is what I got my license for. Or every time you can't say that I'm doing pro bono, but I don't care about my, running my family.
Right.
So you have to balance it up.
Wow, that's really wonderful and really insightful as well. And coming to the other side of it, Arunima, you might countries, right, that have government funded attorneys appointed, lawyers appointed, advocates appointed. How do you see that? When we talk about countries like Finland, Norway, they do have government appointed lawyers and attorneys. I mean, if I have any problem, then I can actually talk to, I don't know how's the whole process, but I would be appointed through government itself by a proper attorney, and he or she would take my case, and also the payment is done, or the fund is completely through the government. So how do you see that? Do you think there's a probability of that happening in India anywhere down the line? I of course know that it's not doable to some extent, but what are your notes on it?
In fact, there are channels where you can. The government has come up with such programs. Even the current Chief Justice, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, he keeps talking about how to make it more public friendly. But I think if the change just cannot happen by one man fighting it for the welfare of the entire country. Right? He has brought a lot of change at the Supreme Court today. Right? He is all pro for mediation, and of course the Supreme Court is now insisting on mediation, commercial mediation as well. Why increase the pendency of cases? And there are, when you talk about government-funded lawyers, in fact, the public prosecutors are paid by the government. Any of the criminals, you don't have to pay them. But the problem is corruption. So, as the defense person, it's very easy for me to bribe and just get away with the matter. So the entire case gets destroyed. Prosecution case. Reason being, I bought the prosecution. It's easier. So somewhere I feel there should be some sort of training there should be some sort of monitoring being done by the courts themselves, which would regulate it. I don't know to what extent it is possible, but yes, of course. And secondly, the notion of having generational lawyers, right? That's also one thing that stops people that to get into litigation. I know they are good lawyers, first generation lawyers, but they are fearful because who is going to pay for their home? They, if they want to work for a senior, the senior would pay them like 2,000, 5,000 rupees for a month. Imagine living in a city like Bombay. Not everybody is from Bombay who is staying with their family. There are people who have come from Uttar Pradesh. There are people who have come from Delhi. And they want to do something for the family. Not everybody is that privileged. There are people who come from humble backgrounds. You can't pay them 5,000 for 6 days. Not even 5. There are people who are working for 6 days. And litigation is a very demanding place. Even corporates pay you well. So that's why people move towards corporates.
And I'd also want to focus on the fact that our Bar Council of India fosters cross-border learning. That is something that you've also mentioned in LinkedIn.
So
And I think they have also signed an MOU with the Bar Council of England and Wales. And I feel that the whole move is really impeccable. I mean, that's really commendable. Do you think these kind of MOUs or these kind of new affiliations or new things going on within this justice area of India, do you think this would definitely change the whole ecosystem in the future? Because I do believe that it might change. What are your views on it?
So Devashish, I wrote this article because I think it's a very welcome move.
Right.
I have been on both sides. I have been as a counsel as well, as a lawyer as well. I have also been in litigation. So I understand what are the challenges, what litigants actually face. Right? And I feel it's a wonderful move to have that quality when you talk about bringing in more lawyers, bringing in the force to support the system. Right? It's a welcome move. But sadly, when I spoke to some very senior people, some of my friends, they were not happy about it. They said, it's our bread and butter, and somebody else is taking it. Why should we, allow this? So that is also one sort of attitude with people. So it depends. It differs. For me, I think it's brilliant, and we should definitely. Right now, it's a very limited. It's a very limited space that they have been allowed to enter. They can get into international arbitration, they can get into international cases and all. But if it has to be a local case or something where it has to be very state focused, then of course they are not. They don't have the authority to entertain that matter.
For me, when I came across this news, I thought first there would be lots of transparency, and second there would be a competition in terms of parity, which I've also mentioned. I thought these two things are the main focus of the whole collaboration, and I thought this would definitely help because as I've mentioned, quality is obviously better than quantity, and I thought this would give the run for their money, not only just onto the litigant side but also to the lawyer side. That is something that I have figured out. I don't know how much of it is correct. And the next one is, of course, you've also mentioned that there are foreign nationals who are now allowed into the Indian legal. I mean, they can practice Indian legal in India, right? So I thought these two moves are completely what we are trying to solve, or what we are thinking about, or the problem in brief that we're talking about, that this would definitely help first curb the corruption, because I think there will be a certain transparency going on once this affects in a much more larger scale. What do you think about that?
Of course, definitely. If we have, like I said, it's about lawyers. If you have good quality of lawyers, any country which has a good legal system will always be strong. And more than political, more than anything, I believe the one pillar that holds it all together is judiciary. So you need your judicial system very, very strong. where a litigant doesn't feel threatened, but rather welcome. He has some sort of faith that I am ready to take up my matter, and he's not threatened about how am I going to find it. I mean, there are so this way at least there will be a kind of competition. So people will there'll be there will be a better quality of lawyers who would be coming into the future. And I think this should also be somewhere introduced at the trial courts. That will change the whole dynamics and the landscape of how the trial is being conducted. Because if you go to trial courts, which are law courts, okay, that's where the whole beauty of litigation happens. Right? Now, though it's the law court, but that is where it determines your destiny, because all the evidences, all the examination, cross-examination, that happens at that stage. Right. So, I think if they are, if good lawyers, if these are also I'll not say good or bad, I'll not categorize, but I'll say that
well-learned or well-informed lawyers. I think that's a better word.
If there are more well-informed lawyers who are brought and introduced in the trial system, it will change the landscape. And I think people would suffer less. And that's the whole agenda and goal. It's not about, serving somebody food to legal fraternity. It's about getting the justice. Because at the end of the day, that makes you satisfied.
Right. And just because you mentioned trials, I'm very much curious about trials. We have seen in movies. I've never seen a trial in live. So I want to understand, how does it happen? I really do not know the very basics of it. I've seen movies, of course. You've also seen Jolly LLB is one example from Bollywood that I've seen, and there are a lot of the movies, but I've seen from Hollywood. So I don't think
it's very real. It's very real. The Jolly LLB that you saw, it is very real.
Right.
At times it happens. So it also depends on what kind of matter you're dealing with. I have handled, I have seen also trials first hand, and I've seen the kind of lawyers and how they deal. I mean, at magistrate level, if I talk, right, I don't think, exceptionally 10% of the people are there who are actually very good. Like, you would want to sit in the courtroom and you would want to observe them. How they break a witness, how they bring the truth. And you have to be very clear on your facts. So it's all about how you're playing with the facts. But then there are also lawyers who would it's very monotonous. It's like very robotic. There's no fun. And it seems that, people are not very interested, or maybe they are probably tired because the law courts are also overburdened. So once in a while, yes, you get to see the charm, but rarely.
The procedures are done in Hindi, right? Are Hindi and English? Is these other languages? Because not Hindi, I think regional languages in states also happen. I have actually seen certain videos of interaction, judges and lawyers, in the court. I've seen certain videos of interaction, and the code of conduct when it comes to the language that they use, I found it little underwhelming. I expected something more, but the language was little off. So how is that? I mean, is that the general thing that's happened in the court, or what exactly happens when it comes to the code of conduct, the language used? Is it respectful? Is it derogatory? How is it?
It is very respectful. You can't even sit cross-legged in the court. If you are facing the judge, you can't sit cross-legged, because that's supposed to be disrespectful. And it depends. It differs from one lawyer to other. So of course, there are people who think they have done it all, they have achieved it all, and they are not ready to, listen to the person. And then there are judges who are very young, right? And there could be a lawyer who is probably older than the judge himself. The judge has been newly appointed, and I've seen, in one of the matters, the judge was newly appointed, and he might be in his, I think, early 30s,
Mhm.
and the lawyer who was, appearing was in his 55 plus, and he kind of not, he spoke in a very, I'll say, he was not upholding the integrity of the courtroom.
Right.
Okay, and he was smiling, mocking, and lastly, so imagine that hits your ego because a 30-year-old chap is telling me to get out. So that is also a challenge where sometimes it may feel overwhelming. So
Right. So I think we have spoken enough about it. Now we'll deviate the topic, and I want to talk about Sam Altman. Uh,
yeah,
you must have seen his recent remarks on how if India is really prepared to go against AI giants like OpenAI, and the remark was something which discouraged some, but for you or for some others or for me also, I thought it was something which a challenge to be accepted, and more than that, I think it was the truth. There was certain truth inclined to it. But my question for you is to understand the navigation of legal system in the intersection of these kind of new technologies coming up, because AI is something very powerful, everyone knows it, and I'd want to understand, is India ready to take control of these kind of highly advanced technologies, and if it is, then how is the legal system going to cope with it?
I think it's about balancing the traditional law with the emerging technology. Now, one of the key responsibilities is to navigate through the intricacies of law. Now, this could sometimes feel like solving a Rubik's Cube, right? Now, let me just give you an example of drafting a contract, right? Now, when I'm drafting a contract, I have to advise on the intellectual property rights, right? Or look at certain licenses. I wear multiple hats, and I have to look at that particular covenant from different perspectives to protect the company's interests. Now, this challenge could also be territory. This challenge could also be with the time, where the time is the essence, where there are service contracts, and you have to meet your tasks. There are tight deadlines that you have to deliver while addressing these legal considerations. You have to do quite a balancing act. It's like walking a tightrope, but judging legal codes and industry practices. I think one thing about that comment was that yes, till now India has not come up with any AI tool. I mean, I'm not talking about something like Zomato or something like some app. I'm talking about real, very the technological advancement that is happening at such a speed, right? The digital era has brought forth new platforms, streaming services, social media, and each has its own set of legal implications. Right. So staying updated with the global trend pertaining to AI, pertaining to content, pertaining to data privacy is very paramount when you talk about India's growth as a country in the global space.
Right. And how do you see India to be prepared for it? There are concerns about data privacy. There are concerns about what exactly to the restrictions of these kind of AI developments. How do you see India, and of course in the light of the new amendment that has happened to the IT rules 2021 also. So how do you see all these things together, and how do you see India can be ready for it?
I think one way is to study the international frameworks. We have to look at the best practices across the globe and learn, pick up best things from there and implement it for your country. Now I understand that the infrastructure could be different.
Correct.
So I'm not saying that build something as exhaustive or as elaborate as GDPR, which is probably working for a European Union, but have something which could live up to the trend, right? So that's one. Second challenge is to keep up with the rapid technological advancement. So you need to have clear understanding of how the world is changing, what are the dynamics across the globe, and what all changes in the law is also being brought into effect. I mean, today, if you look at Instagram, we would have never thought about a crime or an offense being committed on an intermediary channel 10 years back or even 5 years back for that matter. Today there are this is a reality. There is a threat to your privacy, there is a threat to your content, there are people who have been there was a Tinder case, Tinder double murder case, if you remember. It was all over the news, right? So what is the responsibility of an intermediary when something this drastic happens? I mean, can the intermediary say that, okay, I didn't do the background check of this person at all, so I have no liability? Recently, there was a video uploaded on YouTube about Amul milk quality, okay? And the influencer who's done it is based abroad, I think Germany or somewhere, and I don't clearly remember which country. It's been a little old, but the court has asked for his data to be given. But Google has said that there is no treaty signed between that country and ours. So how do you bring that person's data to India and submit it to the judicial authority? I mean, you don't have your authority in that place, right? So another challenge, you need to have those treaties, global treaties in place. You need to see what are the benefits that we can derive from signing that treaty and how well we can learn, how we can gel up with the global advancement. That's also something to be thought about.
And since you have mentioned about social media, right now social media is like the strongest tool ever, where your opinions can be broken, can be manufactured, can be made new, ready-made. To be honest, it's more like a ready-made opinion-making mechanism as of now. Of course, it is very powerful, but it can be again used negatively and positively. So how do you see the role of social media currently when it comes to the legal matters of India's digital system or digital age, in this India's digital age? How do you see that?
I think like I said, it's a very strong tool. It could be a blessing or a curse, depending on how do we use it, right? And of course, there are several challenges, and it requires effective navigation. Now, one of the prominent challenges that I feel that exists in the social media is the IPR infringement, like copyright, trademark, where your media content is used without your authorization or attribution. Okay? This is not India specific. This is prevalent across the globe, and it is crucial for us to understand anybody, not just when I say us, it means anybody who's using social media. It's crucial to understand the copyright laws in your jurisdiction to ensure compliance is one and to avoid legal disputes. Another significant concern is defamation, which involves making false statements that can harm individual reputation, right? Now, companies or intermediaries for that matter need to exercise caution when publishing or broadcasting content to avoid any potential claim. Now, here in India, we do have our Indian Penal Code, we do have IP Act, which addresses such offences, but its consequences. But it's important for us to understand these laws and to follow ethical practices to mitigate legal risk. Another area of concern is privacy and data protection. Now here, with increasing digital concern about processing personal data, it raises your questions about privacy breaches. Now in India, currently the PDP bill is still pending, right? It is not yet enacted into law. Now once it is enacted, it will give us the proper framework a comprehensive framework to comply with data privacy regulations, and also to have certain security measures to safeguard sensitive information. Though we do have your IP Act, we do have SDPI rules, right? But these are more on what is personal information. But it doesn't talk about personal identifiable information, PII, which is your email ID, which is your number, which could be your date of birth, anything that lets me identify you. So these are the challenges which is being faced by companies, broadcasters, advertising companies, and the infringement issue is always underlying. So one way is to moderate the content. Now this is again a very unique thing.
It's a very debatable subject. I think it has already been debated about the kind of restrictions that we have on content, right?
So when you talk about content moderation, the challenge is there are two kinds of content, right, which is being posted. One is your individual prepared content. Second is when it's about media houses, news agencies. So how do you balance your freedom of speech and also be responsible to prevent the dissemination of harmful or illegal content? It of course requires a nuanced approach, and here the intermediary guideline and the digital media ethics tools come into picture. We do have ASCII in place, which also lays some sort of responsibility on the influencer who are making out, who are earning some revenue out of any sponsorship content that they are preparing and they are posting it online. So these are it is something which has been in the media space, but these are not very India specific. It resonates globally, and with upcoming legislation with PDPA, I think we can analyze it better. We can analyze global legal developments as well, and then we can probably navigate these challenges.
Right. And I think it is being worked on, I think, in a more positive way, right? In India, if we speak specifically, I think we are doing really great about it. And I'm sure in the coming future, there would be different things that we can see, and I hope it all works good as per the national interest. That is something. And I want to understand, you have mentioned about staying updated, right? You have also mentioned about understanding the whole nuances of how exactly the international standards of justice or lots of other things it's done. And I think we should learn from it. That's how we can keep ourselves updated. That is one thing. But second thing that I want to understand is, how do you keep yourself updated? What are your mechanisms? What keeps you updated with the current standards or the trends and all of that?
So, like I said in the beginning, I'm never the smartest person in the room. That is one of my insecurities. I think when I'm talking to somebody, be it a legal professional or a non-legal professional, more if it is a somebody who is from business side, somebody who's a team member who's not from my team, but who's depending on my opinion. So I don't want to give a wrong opinion. It's very embarrassing. For example, I tell you this is legally possible, and 5 days after being done, I come back saying, no, this is not how. I'm sorry, I gave you a wrong opinion. So that is very embarrassing. Something that I would want to avoid. So what I do, I do read every day on a very daily basis. I do read channels like Live Law, Parliament. I also have Manpatra subscription, so I read through the updated news. Live Law more so. I think they are very categorized, so it's easier for me. I also go through a lot of articles that people have posted. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I think that's one place where you can gather a lot of knowledge, and everybody is talking so much about different things happening in different parts of the world. It's very interesting.
Right. Right. And I think the opinions also really would is something that we can look forward to, because we believe that something is right, but then when we look after all the comments, I've had this, I go to the comments on LinkedIn specifically, or any other channel for that matter, and I always see the contradiction going on, and then lots of other opinions getting in. I think it's one of the best place to actually learn lots of things.
And it is, I think, when you talk about difference in perspective, it can happen to anybody. I mean, it's as simple as you can view a glass, you know, half filled as half full, and I can say it's half empty, right? So it's as simple as that. So your perspective might not resonate with mine, but that does not make it wrong.
And then, since we have discussed a lot, I want to ask this question. I'm really interested to know this. What are your views on this present implications of the battle for justice between the country of Ukraine versus Russian Federation? How do you see the implications, or the ongoing battle would actually impact not just those particular countries but the whole world? How do you see that?
I think we all today are suffering because of this. I don't think any part of, I won't say suffering, I think we all have been affected. Suffering will not be the correct word. I think we all have been affected. Somewhere this war at a humanitarian level, forget the law, forget what is what
on
the other people
on a very basic sense, of course. Yeah.
I mean, people have died who are not even involved. There are people, I was watching a video and it just broke my heart to see a guy who was pleading to a bus driver. He had a Siberian husky and he said, I can't live without my dog. This is my only family. Please allow me to sit in your bus with my dog. And the driver was not allowing him. And he had to literally beg him, plead him, and then he was allowed in the bus, and then he, crossed the border from Ukraine at the time of when the war was initially when it happened. So imagine how many animals and animals, human beings, how many lives have been destroyed. There are what Russia did to Ukraine. I'm not talking about war. War can still be fought with integrity, something that I believe. There was a Russian soldier who had raped one of the Ukrainian women. I think she was the wife of the Ukrainian soldier. And he raped her, and then he sent a video to his wife. He did it live, and his wife said, this can rape her. Imagine the kind of hatred that's there in the mind of people.
Complete deprivation of human rights.
It's a waste of resources, it's a waste of energy. Even the ICJ has so many times tried to resolve it amicably. The hearings are still, I think the proceedings have begun again. Initially, Russia initially denied to be part of these proceedings. I was watching, I think last week, there was an live proceeding of the ICJ.
Right. It's open for the public.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, humanity comes before anything else, and war is never the answer. I think you can always sit and resolve it. I think there are countries who are adding fuel to it rather than resolving it. They are being allies. They're being allies, and they don't realize it's not the country which is going to die. There are people who have lost their families, people who have built their houses, imagine, for so many years. We spend so much of life, so much of resource. We spend our entire life building one home, and that home is destroyed. How heartbreaking that is.
So how do you see these proceedings, and how do you see the justice? I'm sure it would be served at certain point of time, but again, it's too late, I guess. But how do you see the implications? Because even last time when we saw World War One, World War Two, there were certain implications, and the world was aligned in a way to prosper in a more peaceful way. So how do you see this war and the ongoing proceedings, the ongoing war also, and how do you see this would impact the countries on a whole in the future?
I think one is if they get some sort of restraining order in the ICC, and it should set an example to the countries across the globe, not just for Russia, Ukraine. It should set an example for anybody who begins the war. To say that war is never going to be an answer, right? That's fine. When you talk about justice, I don't think justice would ever be achieved in this scenario. All people can get is now being compensated for what they have lost. Now, if that's again questionable whether you call compensation as justice. Somebody this war has been going on since 2021, if I'm not wrong, right? So, I mean, somebody who's lost so much since then. 21 or 22?
22.
22, right. Someone who has lost so many years, so many days of their lives, how do you compensate? Somebody who has lost a family, how do you compensate? How do you get them justice? Justice is when you bring the family back, when you bring their loved ones back, when you, turn back the time. Whether these people are not killed, whether these people are not raped, that is where justice would. That justice would never be forever.
Well, I hope it stops soon. It's really heartbreaking, as you mentioned also. It's really heartbreaking to see all these things. And I hope there's some mechanism of all of this in the future. I hope that happens really soon. But yes, that's it. We'll move on to the next part. And I swear this is going to be the last two questions that I have. So one thing that I want to ask is there any particular case or project that you have worked on, particularly or personally, not personally, of course, professionally, which you're really proud of, your accomplishment, and of course you have won several awards. That is something that I've already seen, and I'd love to understand how would it shape the near future for women. But before that, I want to understand if there are any particular cases that you have been a part of, and you're just proud of it, that you have did something great or got success.
I think the Gujarat tribe case, where I have not. I was in my fourth year of law. So I was technically not a lawyer, but I worked on that. I interned on that. I think that's where I got my taste of litigation, where I began my journey. So it will always be very special to my heart, because that's when I understood the intricacies of criminal law. I have seen photographs of people who have been killed, who have been, mutilated, and I wrote as a public prosecutor. So there were some 67 witnesses. A very, very complicated matter, but that's where I began the journey. So I think and that point of time, I was very young. I had nobody to guide me. I did not have the knowledge to understand and grasp all of it. It was all sort of raw for me.
The last question, I want to understand is, you have written a book, right? And what inspired you to write that book? I think it's just very different from what you are, not what you are, but your profession completely. Expecting a book on law, the rule of law is something I'd be expecting from you, and what would be the current ecosystem and the changes. But you have written a complete different book where it empowers individuals to follow the right path, and then how to create an impact in the world. So how did you come to write this book? How did you get the whole idea? What inspired you to write it?
I think, Ashish, I have seen a lot of pitfalls in life, okay, and I have seen situations where I've seen my own folks, my own friends who turn their back. When shit hits the roof, right? You don't have anybody around you. And I've been through such situations. So, when I was thinking of writing this book, I was imagining if only I had some sort of positive quote or, something very simple I could just read, not a very complicated thing to understand. That could help me with my mental wellness. A very understated thing. It's a very simple thing, but again, a very complicated thing. How do you look at it? So I think the whole idea of coming up with this book was to tell somebody that you are your own unstoppable influencer. You can do what you want. If you wanted that positivity, sometimes you just need somebody to tell you, okay, you can do it. I believe in you. Even when the whole world, even when your own voice in the head is telling you, nahi, ye nahi ho payega. Right? One hope beacon of hope. Somebody tells you, no, this only you can do it. So sometimes you just need that. So this is why I came up with the book. I talked about my challenges. I talked about, what all things I have gone through, what all, and as a lawyer, as an intern, as a student, when I started my law practice, initially I was literally paid peanuts, and I was working from Monday to Sunday. So I had to carry the in the courtroom. I had attempts even miss my lunch, right? From that perspective, I thought someday it will help someone. It's not about selling the book, but even if it could help one person, I think my job is done.
Right, wonderful, and I hope that it reaches people. And the major part, I think the takeaway for me through the podcast was on the emphasis of how we can actually correct the legal system in India. Not correct, but better. That I think that would be the right word. And I think we are in a dire need of it as well. As citizens of India, I think we are in it. We call ourselves a developing nation. We are one of the strong nations. In the near future, we are even now. But I think without this, we would be more like limping. I think this is something that's really important. I really love the conversation, and I hope you also like the conversation.
Thank you for making me so comfortable. Like I said, I was really nervous, so thank you for making it a cakewalk for me.
Right.
I'm very happy to be part of this. So thank you.
Thanks Arunima again. Thanks for being the part, and I think it has been wonderful. And I hope to discuss again the later advancements, the new amendments going on, maybe in the future, somewhere down the line, maybe in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And I know that I won't be stopping this. So yeah, definitely I look forward to have a conversation again.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thanks.